I often say that the subject of this story, Solomon Northup, who wrote this narrative, as after being released from slavery, I felt that he was my sibling growing up because he was always a part of our household. So when Mom was 12 years old in central Louisiana, she hopped in the truck with her dad. They drove to a plantation called Oak Hall Plantation. Dr. Hayes, and Dr. Hayes says, "Young lady, you're going to be bored sitting here listening to two old men. How about coming into the library?" He brings her in the library and plucks off the shelf a dusty old copy of 12 Years a Slave. And it was fascinating to her because for the first time she was reading a book about a place where she grew up and the names of people that were familiar, and she made it her life's work.
That book became a focus, a lifelong passion. Tell us about that.
She felt that it was important to connect the dots between the past and what we see in terms of the issues of the racial divide and issues in the African American community today with history. And she felt that 12 Years a Slave was the most compelling vehicle that she had found to tell that story. Mom worked with the state of Louisiana to create the Northup Trail, and it plots the story and the places in the story so that someone can travel to central Louisiana and make the journey of Solomon Northup. The movie is about the story of Solomon Northup, a free man of color who was kidnapped in New York, in Saratoga, New York, and brought down what was called the reverse Underground Railroad. Instead of the Underground Railroad escaping, being used to free slaves, this one worked in reverse, and actually people kidnapped slaves and brought them to the South illegally.
People of color and brought them down.
Yes, and it was illegal, and even the southern states were not, they frowned upon that. He ultimately was brought to Louisiana and spent 12 years enslaved in central Louisiana.
But once released, he wrote this book that became a bestseller in that day.
That's correct. Shortly after release, the mission was to immediately get this story out so that other people might come to help him find the kidnappers and bring them to justice. So they wrote this book in an incredible 3 months, and it's a very well-written book.
Though you entered this from the historical side and the American experience, have you been shocked to discover how pervasive slavery is today?
I had honestly no idea how pervasive it was. It's an immense problem, and Houston, in particular, is one of the highest, trafficked cities in the country.
For most of us sitting here this morning, it's hard to imagine, how does one in the 21st century find him or herself caught up in slavery or human trafficking?
In foreign countries, these militias, such as the Coney militia, which is infamous, literally go into communities and kidnap people and force them into their militias, and they become slaves, and they work, and create, material goods to benefit the militias, and also physically, these are kids, these are teenagers who are conscripted and placed into their army. And domestically, these are also very young girls. The average age is like 13 or 14 years old, and they're mostly from broken homes, and they're looking for someone to provide them help and hope. Unfortunately, those girls are taken advantage of, and they're brought into something, and then literally trapped and enslaved and placed into sexual exploitation, and that's mostly how it occurs.
And then from overseas, there are girls that answer ads from poor third world countries, developing countries, to go to Western Europe or to the Middle East, for thinking it's lucrative positions,
Right.
only to be far from home, caught up, and finding themselves enslaved and with nobody to advocate for them and no way to get out or get back home.
Again, they're entrapped, and almost you think about it both in terms of domestic slavery and the situation you've described, and Solomon Northup's situation. They're lured by a job, or they're lured into this trap, if you will, and then they're enslaved, and they cannot find their way out. There's no, as you say, there's no one to advocate for them.